Sure.
The Cardinals. Let me give you the St. Louis Cardinals update for everybody who's paying attention.
This should be
Let,
good.
let,
This,
let- straight from John Mozeliak's desk. Let me see if I can pull up. Actually, he emailed me his schedule. Hold on. He emailed me his schedule the other day because we keep in touch.
yeah.
So
You and
yeah,
Mo, you keep
me
in
and
touch.
Mo, we keep in touch. Let me just bring this up real quick. So here's his schedule that I found that he emailed me, and this is it. That's what he's doing. Uh,
Uh,
so he's like seven. You see how he starts really early.
All I
He
see is
gets into
Cosby
work.
impression. That's what I
Yeah, Cosby. This is Mo's schedule for the day.
stood in pretzel line.
That's what he's up to.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a jam packed day.
It is. A
Yeah,
lot of
so
baseball I see in there. A lot of baseball.
yeah, and I need to do what I need to do, Mike.
Making moves.
What I need to do is I've always wanted to do Cardinals comedy. Um, and I've always had this image of John Mozeliak at the trade deadline, like asleep, like off of a sugar high or something like that, like exactly like Michael Scott in The Office,
Yeah.
where he just had too much sugar and he just crashes, and then it's 2:55 on the trade deadline, and he wakes up and he goes, "Oh crap, we need starting pitching. Let me make some phone calls real quick and see if we can make a trade happen."
Yeah.
Um, like it's because all these moves that the card, I would say, I have no idea, but I would venture to say that 90% of the Cardinals trades have been within the last 10 minutes of the trade deadline.
Uh-huh.
Like Jordan Montgomery
Hmm.
for Harrison Bader was at the last minute. I want to say uh, um, the left hand Quintana was at the last minute.
Yeah.
John Lester when we traded for him, remember that? That was at the last minute. And
John
J. A.
Lester pitched for the Cardinals.
Yep, John Lester and J. A. Happ were at the last minute of the trade deadline.
When did
I'm
Lester
pretty
pitch
sure.
for the Cardinals? What year?
And 20, it was either 21 or 22.
Yeah.
I'd have
That's,
to pull that up, but I
is it,
think it was. I think it was 21.
when you think about Lester pitching for the Cardinals in 2021, that'd be 5 years after he pitched for the Cubs in the World Series. And, you talk about the trade deadlines being last minute acquisitions and Mozeliak sleeping at the
Yeah.
wheel. And
Hmm.
the Cardinals of recent years have had kind of it's kind of an MO of theirs to bring in or to hold on to for one more year, washed up. Uh, uh, and not that John Lester was washed up when the Cardinals got him. I love John Lester. No shade to him. But let's just say maybe past their prime pitchers. How did Lester perform for the Cardinals in that?
I just pulled it up.
Yep.
12 starts,
Yep.
4.36 ERA.
Yeah.
Let's see, where's his win loss? 4-1
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
win loss record. Did give up 11 home runs in 66 innings pitched, which is not. That's not great. So I mean, he was okay. I mean,
Yeah.
ERA plus 90. So he was like an average pitcher, maybe a little bit below average.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. The Cardinals in recent years have relied on, not the dominant starting pitcher, but the starting pitcher that can eat innings. This is what was sold to the Cardinals fans last year with
Right.
oh, I can't even. Kyle Gibbs. I blocked it out of my last year out of my memory. So the starting pitching, although starting pitching really wasn't terrible, it was average, maybe even a little bit below average if you look at the numbers. But Lance Lynn didn't really inspire much, optimism, and Kyle Gibson was okay, but those were guys that were not top of the line, starting rotation pieces. And I think the Cardinals are realizing that when you don't handle your minor league system the right way, this is why what the Cubs are doing is so important. Because when you build up your farm system, the reason it's the most important thing is because not only do you get that talent pool, but you also have the option to trade some of those pieces away to get premier talent on your team. So it provides you the ultimate flexibility, and the ultimate travesty is that the Cardinals let that go by the wayside. And Katie Woo, obviously, if you're super plugged into the Cardinals, you know the fantastic reporting that Katie Woo's put in on that. So it's just really disappointing all the way around. And in recent years, and to your point, the Cardinals have just been overly reliant on nostalgia, on Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright, and bringing back Albert Pujols, and nobody could have predicted that magical season. And then you get two MVP caliber seasons from Goldschmidt and Arenado, and you have people like me, super fans that are thinking, oh my God, we have our 3-4 hitters in the lineup for the next 5 years in
Right.
Goldschmidt and Arenado, because you're thinking, especially in the case of Arenado, like, how can this go, or how can this not work out? And unfortunately, the Cardinals over the next couple of years got, above average play from him offensively. And now they're looking to trade him, and now it doesn't really look like they're going to trade him, because when do pitchers and catchers report? Like here in a
Well,
couple weeks?
44 days until Cubs opening day in Tokyo. So yeah,
Wow.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Pitchers and catchers report. I don't know
Yeah. Well, and
exactly.
this was always the problem with trading Arenado. As Mike Jones's camera takes a tumble there.
Yeah.
But the problem with trading Arenado is, one, he's owed a lot of money, and two, he's kind of an average player now. And you really need a team that believes that they can revitalize somebody who's, let's face it, on the wrong side of 30 years old and getting older, and not really looking like, it's not really looking great that he can get back that pull power that he once had, because that's what he relied on. He was never really a next gen stats, hard hit rate kind of guy. He was a guy who relied on being able to pull the ball to left field, and the power that came with that. And now he doesn't really do that as much anymore. So the Cardinals are in a bad spot because he's got a no trade clause too. And so I think if I can boil down the frustration the frustration of the inaction is, this is the ultimate opportunity to see what you have in some younger players, and it looks like the Cardinals are just kind of not making a choice, which it in itself is making a choice. So and Mozeliak is just sitting there, with his feet up on the desk, with his Cosby impression on his schedule. Wait, I don't know what and I say that in jest. I'm sure he's trying to work hard to make some of these moves. I guess, I don't know, but it really feels like, I don't know. I this is, like I said, this is the ultimate opportunity to figure out what you have in some of these guys. And are we really going to let another year go by without giving Quinn Matthews an opportunity, without giving Tink Hence an opportunity, without giving, Thomas Sajaci some time, not playing on the bench, playing, maybe second base or third base in a utility role? What's Nolan Gorman's role going to be? Because, is Jordan Walker going to play the outfield every day? What are you going to do with Alec Burleson? Like, there's so many questions that we don't have the answers to yet. We might not get the answers until opening day. We might not. We might not know, but I do know this: if you have Michaelis, Steven Matz, Sonny Gray, obviously Sonny Gray is going to stay, and that's fine. But if you have some of these older guys in the rotation, and if you have Nolan Arenado at third base, it just there's just not. I mean, it's the opposite problem that the Cubs have. It's like there's too many. We have too many roster cloggers here that
right?
are getting in the way of what we really should be focused on, which is if this team's not going to be competitive, then we need to focus on the future and the future Cardinals teams that will be competitive. And it just like the Bernie Nicholas and Josh Jacobs, who do such a great job, they brought up the point, and I think Josh Jacobs, who is with the Dealing with the Cards podcast, and he does work with Fansided as well. He brought up the fact, and I didn't, you know, it's one thing I didn't even really think about, and it's like, why didn't Michael McGreevy pitch last year? You know, especially when the Cardinals were out of it. Like, why didn't some of these younger players get more opportunities last year? And it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that's the Cardinals update is like we're just kind of frustratingly middling when you know the path is clear to me, and the path is we should be trading Ryan Helsley, we should be trading Eric Fetty, we should be trading Nolan Arenado, even though that's probably the toughest piece to trade. We should probably be seeing like what can we get for Miles Michaelis, even though that's going to be who knows, maybe we get a ham sandwich and a cup of coffee for him, but
Or some
we need
pretzel.
to be
Maybe
or
that's
some
why he was standing in the pretzel line. I mean,
yeah, yeah. I and so this frees up opportunities and payroll for next year. You know, like and you're so this year you're going to figure out what you have, and next year you're going to know what you have, and you're going to have more money to spend, and hopefully you can turn this thing sooner rather than later. That's the hope. With a rebuilt farm system,
okay,
that's the direction I would go. Clearly, there's some people that disagree with me. Clearly, the Cardinals do not agree with me, which is not, you know, which is pretty much par for the course. They never do anything I want them to do, so that's fine. But well, I
yeah,
don't know. What are your thoughts here?
well, I mean, I find it very interesting. First of all, 7 days, 11 hours, 35 minutes, and 3 seconds until
Oh,
pitch
there's a
catcher's
countdown.
report because the Cubs pitchers and catchers are going to report on February 9th, notably earlier than all the rest of the league because of their deal in Tokyo on March 18th against the Dodgers and the Ho Chi Minh, or that's the wrong city, but you know the Japanese teams that they're going to play. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but so you know that's coming fast. Like that's next weekend. That's the Sunday the 9th is a week from tomorrow. So pitchers catchers report on that day for the Cubs, and I imagine the Dodgers too, right? I mean, because they're also going over to play over there. But I find it interesting, Seth, that you're. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to hear kind of the panic in your voice about what's going on in St. Louis. Um,
Yeah.
but what's interesting to me is that when we look at the big picture here, and if I can ever get to it, okay, here we go. The Cardinals finished, if not for the alphabet, second in the National League Central last year. 10 games back, right?
Mm-hmm.
10 games. Tied with the Cubs. Same identical records, second place. And I think somehow people forget that. And one of the things that you mentioned was, okay, farm system, bringing up, you know, we've got to get that farm system going. Of course, that's been a real calling card for the Cubs, right? Like they've been building up their farm system. They made these big trades, all that kind of stuff. One of the people that they did trade in order to build for this year was third baseman Cam Smith, who was a top 100 prospect, you know, for Kyle Tucker. And I think that, you know, I of course you always hope this, but I hope they don't regret that trade, right? Years from now, because Cam Smith was a first round pick in 2024. And he was the highest ranked player in the farm system, right? Or I shouldn't say that. He was the highest ranked player who was moved during this off
Mm-hmm.
so far, right? Um, they do know, of course, our Cubs do know that we've got some high end talent there, in that position, knocking on the door. Um, and even though the Cubs have, I think it's something like five. Let me see if I can find that number. Yeah, five players currently ranked in the top 100 on ESPN's list. Um, the the Cubs' value in their farm system has actually dropped in some rankings this year, which I find to be interesting. The ESPN list has them at number 10 now. Last year, they were one, two, three, bouncing around in that area. And even with
Mm-hmm.
those five players in the top 100, so, I don't know where the Cardinals are on that list, nor do I care. But that there seems to be an overwhelming sense of hopefulness and positivity about where the Cubs are versus where the Cardinals are. And some of that has to do with farm system, some of the moves that we've made recently. But when you look back on last year, we tied. It was even records, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that dynamic is just interesting to me. There seems to be more woe is me in St. Louis um, from the perspective that I get about the Cardinals than there is in Chicago right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the direction of the organization because I think if you were to ask Cardinals fans a couple of years ago, and it's so funny how this stuff can flip in just a year or two. You know what I mean? Because I think
Yeah,
2 years ago, if I had brought up the standings, I'm pretty sure the Cubs were, like in a similar position to where the Cardinals are now. Like I'm sorting 2022 standings right now. Yeah, the Cubs were in third place at 74 and 88. The Cardinals won the division that year. Like we said, with a run differential of at plus 135, which for reference was, let me just do some back of the math, napkin math here. It was fourth or fifth best in the National League. It was right on par with the Mets, who were plus 166. The Braves were plus 180. The Dodgers, of course, were plus 334, which, like, the Dodgers is a whole nother conversation that we could have, and it would be a good segment to talk about perhaps later in the show. But my general frustration with the Cardinals, and I think why the narrative is the way it is, and let's not mince words, it is a narrative, and I think your point is right. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen because the Cardinals have really only lost Paul Goldschmidt, and now they had the same record as the Cubs, but the Cubs, obviously Kyle Tucker, they trade for Ryan Presley. The Cubs are making moves to improve their team, and it feels as though the Cardinals are standing pat or decreasing payroll and actively attempting to trade away players. So I think that has something to do with it. But I agree. I think this version of the Cardinals could win 80 games, like the
yeah,
75, 80 game. You know what I mean? Like, and could fool some people, and I think they would be fooling some people into believing that this team could compete. And I just think over the last couple years, the Cardinals' messaging has been absolutely awful because I think the Cubs, and in general, there's more hype around the Cubs, I think,
right.
because Cubs, it's a bigger city, it's a bigger market. I think more headlines get posted. The Cubs get bigger headlines when they make moves for those reasons. But the Cardinals, like, they are that when somebody tells you something, maybe you should mean what you say. And I think part of the reason Cardinals fans are frustrated is we've heard John Mozeliak say things like, "Oh yeah, we're going to increase payroll, we're going to increase spending," and then you increase it incrementally. Technically we did increase payroll, but that's not what everybody thought when you said we're going to increase payroll. When you say we're going to increase payroll, everybody thinks, "Oh, we're going to go out and sign, I don't know, a big name free agent,
Right.
or
Right.
at least be in the conversation to sign somebody who is actually going to make an impact, not
Right.
try to piece together." So it's things like that. It's Bill DeWitt saying, you can't really make that much money by owning a baseball team. Like it's I'm sorry, like those things matter, and I don't necessarily see the Cubs ownership and the Cubs brass making those PR mistakes. At least how I perceive those to be PR mistakes.
Yeah.
And in St. Louis, we're in this weird spot where it's John Mozeliak's last year, and everybody is sick of John Mozeliak. They kept the manager. Everybody is sick of Oli Marmol, even though he's probably very far down on my list of people to blame. Mozeliak being at the top, ownership being at the top. So I think all of those factors are thrown into this cocktail of blame,
Right. Right.
this cocktail of frustration and angst and just bitterness, and because the Cardinals are the Cardinals, and to steal a line from Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, the standard is the standard. Good enough is not good enough in St. Louis. Like, we are supposed to be perennial contenders, and this has not been our reality for the last several years. And why is that? You always look for somebody to blame, and when your messaging is bad, and when that guy who looks like a schmuck wearing a bow tie up there is saying, "Well, actually, if you really look at it, we have made a lot of efforts to improve this and that, and we feel like we have 8 starting pitchers. I don't know what you guys are talking about." Like, it's just this kowtowing and
Yeah.
talking down to the fans, and poor messaging, and things not working out the way that you would have liked them to, and all of it is the reason why we are feeling the way that we're feeling today, and the reason why the Cardinals are in the state that they are in today. Because let's face it, they've got a lot of work to do to rebuild this farm system that is near the bottom of the league right now. So